here's our first flipped lesson. Bonus points if you can identify all four of these pictures. So you just finished up an assignment on fascism, and there's some key points that I want to make sure that everybody knows about fascism. So fascism is a type of government with these things. There's more, but we're going to focus on these four. There's one single all-powerful leader, which we'll use the term dictator. So you need a dictator for fascism, but they aren't the same thing. All fascist systems have dictators, but not all dictators are fascists. This one you don't have to write anything down on, but I think it's interesting to note and important to note. The goals of a fascist government is they want violence and they want to gain land. So you heard Mussolini say that peace is to be avoided. That's because they prefer violence both in the country and against other countries. Now this one's very important, and it has this kind of odd term. So fascism always finds an other to scapegoat. Now those are kind of two odd terms, this term other and scapegoat. So I'm going to put it in a different way. I'm going to say fascism always finds a minority group. It's not necessarily related to race, so just a group that isn't the largest group. They always find a minority group to make evil, and that's in quotes because of course the group isn't actually evil, and blame problems on. So they're looking for an other, right? One group that Hitler focused on was this group called the Roma, or the Gypsies, and they were considered other. They were not like other Germans, and so they were scapegoated, or they were blamed problems on. Of course, people with disabilities, the Roma, homosexuals, those people all were part of Hitler's other, and the most famous one, of course, were Jewish people. This last point is all fascist systems believe in nationalism. Nationalism is like patriotism on steroids. It's great to love your country, but fascists believe that their country is the best country ever, and that everyone else is weak or lame. And also nationalism oftentimes promises to return a country to past glory days. This idea of glory days being back in the good old days, things were better, and if you vote for these guys, they'll bring the country back to those good times. So this is the four different aspects of fascism, which is a type of government that is one of the main causes of World War II. Now, Italy, Germany, and Japan began taking over nearby countries, and people in the United States began to ask, what should we do with all these fascist countries taking over other countries? This woman would say, Hitler has not attacked us, so why should we attack Hitler? This woman is believing in isolationism. Isolationism is a belief that a country should not get involved with other countries' business. Isolationism. Another way of saying that is isolationists want to be neutral, or they don't want to choose sides in a disagreement. You might have a friend that if you're having a disagreement with your parents or with another friend, they want to remain neutral. They don't want to choose sides. And some Americans, as Germany, Italy, and Japan began taking over other countries, some Americans wanted to remain neutral, but not all Americans did. The President of the United States during the Great Depression and most of World War II is this guy. His name is Franklin D. Roosevelt. Sometimes it's abbreviated to FDR, his three initials. Pretty unique in that he spent large chunks, but not all of his adult life, in a wheelchair. He suffered from a disease called polio when he was a younger man, and it left him pretty weak, and oftentimes he couldn't stand without a lot of help. So we haven't had a lot of presidents with quite as visual a physical disability. This was something that he tried to not keep secret, but definitely tried to downplay. And he was president for longer than any other American president. Now, FDR was not really an isolationist. He wanted isolationists to vote for him, but he felt like this war was ultimately something the United States was going to have to get involved in. There were two laws that were passed. One law was called the Neutrality Act, and one law was called the Lend-Lease Act. these two laws allowed the United States government to do what? To sell weapons and vehicles to Allied armies. The Allies were the countries that were fighting against the fascists. Countries like our friends in Great Britain and France. And here you can see all these American-built ships that could be sold to the Allied forces. Now, is a country really neutral if it's selling weapons to only one side? The United States wasn't fighting, but it was selling weapons to other countries. Another thing that happened was FDR gave permission for the U.S. Navy, that's part of our military, to, quote, escort British ships in Europe in case they were attacked by the Germans, which meant that they could fire at the Germans. And President Roosevelt, FDR, made that decision without anybody's permission. So these are some examples of things that started to push or nudge the United States towards getting involved in World War II. President Roosevelt was not an isolationist. He knew that it was going to be important to choose sides, and he did not want to come out in support of this sort of fascist government. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take these notes and you're going to click over and take this notes check. Feel free to use the document, but take this notes check using your notes, and then you'll be set. When a little